Hello, I'm Monroe Hammond, an associate editor here at Everyday Health. I have the distinct pleasure today of speaking with singer-songwriter and country superstar LeAnn Rimes about her journey living with psoriasis. LeAnn, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to hear you tell us about your journey with psoriasis.
Thank you.
Where do you like to start when you talk about this topic?
Oh, wow. It is still an emotional journey for me. I mean, I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old, and I have been suffering with this my whole life, off and on. Had clearer moments in my life than others, but yeah, it's something that I've hidden for a long time. I've talked about it probably over the past decade, which has been incredibly healing for me. Sorry, you see my dog in the
That's
background. She
great.
just came in. That's Fleetwood, everyone. No, it's been incredibly healing for me to talk about my journey. And recently, last year, I've been clear for a lot of that conversation. And last year, I was not. During the pandemic and so many stressors, I actually had a severe breakout, and I decided to share photos of myself, and which was another incredibly healing step for me, because I knew there was a little girl inside of me that just so desperately wanted to be seen fully and be loved in all of her, not just, what society would deem, the typical pretty. Um, so it was incredibly healing to do that. And I had so many people from all over the world reach out and start to share their journey. And I was overwhelmed. I did not expect that at all. I still get really emotional thinking about it, because it was a very vulnerable piece for me. But to have other people all over the world be as vulnerable and share pictures of themselves even, is just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that, now a year later, being able to partner with Novartis for the PSO and the No campaign has been, it's kind of like this big full circle moment of, now encouraging others through this campaign to share their story. There's over 8 million people in America living with psoriasis. And, I think one of the biggest pieces is it can feel very isolating. And when you realize how many people are actually dealing with the same thing, and we're all able to connect and share our stories, that is, there's something really healing and important about that. So, yeah, it's just kind of one of those beautiful moments. I'm glad that photo brought, so much connection with everyone, and a huge healing piece for me.
Yeah, that was such a great thing for you to do, to share with other people. Before we get to the positive part, can you talk about how it affected you when you were younger to feel like you had to hide your psoriasis?
Yeah, psoriasis has been. I've talked about mental health a lot too, because I've struggled off and on with depression and anxiety, and I think psoriasis was a huge part of that piece as far as my mental health, and feeling very isolated, feeling like not all of me was welcome, and brought to the party of life. Having to hide my skin and my body ever since I was a little girl. Like, I mean, that really does, some of it conscious, but a lot of it unconsciously, put a damper on life. And I went through major different treatments where it was very confining and painful. And, I've been on stage with bleeding underneath my clothing, and so, yeah, it does a lot for your mental health, to your mental health. And it's something that I think those photos for me was such a huge reveal of this piece that I'd been, kind of shoving down for 38 years, 37 years. So it was, yeah, I think it definitely was a struggle. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of people feel that way. And it is hard to be in a society that, still, I mean, even though we're talking about this, and psoriasis is something that is, it's a topic that we discuss these days. It hasn't been that way for a long time. So people can still have the misconception of it's contagious and, all of the things. So it's wonderful that we're actually, bringing this to the forefront, and that there are resources, like PSO and the no.com, that people have a place where they can connect with other people that are suffering through this. So there's no need to feel the isolation anymore, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. When you felt the pressure to hide and you were feeling isolated, do you think that was coming more from outside pressure, or from some place inside yourself where you were judging yourself and how you felt you should look?
Both. I think both. As a quote unquote celebrity in this world, and as a woman, there is a high expectation of the image that I'm supposed to uphold. And I think there was external pressures. And I know, my parents especially my mother, meaning well and wanting to protect her daughter from the outside world, always made sure that I was hidden. So there's also that kind of, with her, the best of intentions, there's also this kind of programming starting very young of like, you have to hide this piece of you, like it's not welcome. So, which obviously I just internalized all of that myself. And there's this wonderful voice that I like to call Tubby. I named him Tubby. He's very judgmental and very loud sometimes. And that was my way of, my own self-judgment of obviously trying to protect myself. Because God knows if we can, I think a lot of us do, at most all of us, if we can, judge ourselves first, in the outside world, whatever everybody else says is it doesn't hurt as much, I think. And so, yeah, that was a huge piece, but I think it was obviously a bit of both, but I definitely internalized all of it.
Did it help to separate out and name Tubby so that
Yes.
It's not, it's not you being mean to yourself, it's Tubby, and you can just, tell Tubby you're not listening to him today.
Exactly. Yes, it was very helpful to recognize that wasn't me. Someone said the other day that I really thought was so powerful. Like, there's anger here, but I'm not angry. Like, there's sadness here, but I'm not sad. It's like, really, there's judgment here, but I'm not the one doing the judging. It's Tubby. So it is really important, and such a key piece to recognize what's truly us and what's those stories that we're just generating in our head or that we've internalized from the outside world.
Have you found any other methods or tips that are really helpful for you to deal with that negative self-talk when you're dealing with a flare?
Oh, wow. Connection. I mean, connection is a huge, huge piece. And being able to verbalize, my own internal experience to those who I know love me and will listen, like, having a great support system around you. For me, that's my husband and my very, very close friends. And for others who don't have that, to find that kind of community is super important, to find people who really understand. And even though, even for me, even though my husband and people are, that are close to me, are there for me, they still don't quite understand what it's like. For me, connecting with Cyndi Lauper recently, which was such a cool piece, because I've never, I don't really talk to other celebrities or other performers that have been through the same kind of situation that I've been through. And so to be on the PSO and then a podcast and connect with her and get to talk about our stories, for me, that was just another level of, someone that's really been there through all the same experiences, you validating, like, yeah, this is real. All the things you go through are real. And so, yeah, connection and community is super important. And, because it can be, we all of a sudden get caught up in our heads and our stories become what we identify with. And if we can take those stories and turn it into, just verbalizing, hey, this is the story I'm creating right now about myself or my experience, and have someone validate that. That is, and someone also validate that that's that's not reality. Like, that's just something we're creating is an important piece.
Yeah. In terms of getting help from friends and family, what are some things that people close to you have done to help you feel better about your condition? Like what can
Oh,
friends and family do to support somebody with psoriasis when they're having a bad day, like a bad flare day or something?
oh my gosh. I think one of the biggest pieces is validating their pain and their experience, and recognizing, like, what they're going through, they might not completely understand, but to be there and to be someone to listen, not to fix. There's nothing that can be done sometimes, not to fix, but just to be there as a present, to listen, is important. And so and just to treat, another piece is like to treat us like it's just another day. This is not, for me at least, it's like my husband has been so fantastic about my whole journey. I think this was the first time last year that he had ever seen me with psoriasis on my body. And we've been married for almost 11 years. So it was, I've talked about it. He's known about it. He's seen photos of me with it, but like never experienced it. So for me to have him like truly see me even with it on me, for me, when I get caught up in my head and that's all I see, and he's like, I don't see it, I don't see what you're seeing. And I think, I never really understood that until I took the photos that I did. And when I looked at those photos, I saw past what was there on my skin. And I think it was the first time that it kind of clicked for me, like, oh, I understand what he's saying. So it's wonderful when you have people around you that treat you the same if you have, whether or not you have a flare going on. And that, that can help bring the joy back into your life when all seems to be kind of glib and painful. So it's wonderful to have those people around that will remind you of your true essence of who you really are.
When you had that big flare for the first time in your marriage, did you feel like it took away from your desire to want to be intimate with your husband, or just feeling desirable?
Yeah.
How did you deal with how did you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, communication is key. And so, I think that's one of the best tricks that I've ever learned, is to be able to communicate, like, hey, this is my experience. This is what I'm going through. These are the stories I'm creating. And, it's to have, like I said, to have someone in my corner who's my partner, who is, treats me and my body and my everything as if that wasn't the case, that wasn't there, is a beautiful thing to have. But it does take away some of your, it really does take away kind of the zest and, like I said, joy for life, because it's like, oh, you feel so, for me at least, I felt so, you feel so abnormal, like, and but what's normal? Like, that's what I'm like, what's normal? And this is my normal. And I'm just, my skin is highly sensitive, and it's just a piece of me. And so the more that we can, have that self-acceptance and self-compassion, I think, that brings the joy back into our experience, and our, to be able to connect more intimately with those that we love.
Mm-hmm. Why is it important for people with psoriasis to practice self-love and self-advocacy?
Oh, wow. Because at the end of the day, you're all you've got, right? Like, we are, obviously, it's wonderful to have all of these people around us that love us, if we're so lucky in life. But at the end of the day, we are our own best advocate. And so, to educate ourselves, to, find the right care, so many different things work for different people. What works for me might not work for someone else. So it's really about, I like to think of myself as kind of like the science experiment and the scientist at the same time. like throughout life, like mental health, physical health, skin health, and just, really kind of be curious. Curiosity is such a beautiful tool when it comes to finding what works for us. So yeah, I think we are always our own best advocate, and we know what's best for us. So listening to our bodies, listening to our intuition is super, super important. And yeah, that self-love piece, man, is that self-compassion to all the parts of ourselves, that we love to bring judgment towards, catching ourselves in that judgment, catching myself when Tubby likes to to get really loud, and applying self-compassion. A great teacher of mine always says, the game of life is it's a love game, and it's applying love to pain. Applying love to where pain has existed is the only way. And so, those sound like really big ideas, but for me, at least, I'm coming to be able to apply those more and more in my life. And boy, does life get a lot more joyful and sweeter.
So related to that, stress can be a huge trigger for people with psoriasis. Is that true for you? And if so, what are some concrete things that you do to decrease your stress level?
Yes, stress is huge. I grew up in a pretty stressful environment as a child. And, obviously having psoriasis from such a young age was incredibly stressful. And then being on the road and the public eye my whole life, stress has been a part of my life and is everyone's. There's no way of getting around it. Obviously, this pandemic has caused another whole level and layer of stress, so it's really take the time for yourself. I mean, that's been a huge key piece for me, is like recognizing how I can't stretch myself thin. I can't do 50 million things at once, and not apologizing for it. Like, no is it's like the best word that you can find, and like stick to it. Like, once we get comfortable with saying no, like, I think that's, and like you said, advocating for ourselves, that's a super important piece. So yeah, to also, meditation has been a huge thing for me, which I've been a major advocate for many years. Walking, nature, being out in nature. I think we've all been cooped up a lot, and just being able to, I think we've all recognized the importance of fresh air, and to something so simple that we all took for granted, like to be able to be out and connect with nature is a huge one for me. So obviously feeding ourselves properly, maintaining, trying to bring down the level of inflammation in the body. Lots of water, that's a huge one for me. Keeping hydrated. I know these are all like super simple things that we think like, oh yeah, like, but most of us don't do it often. It's the simplicity of life that we take for granted and forget to do. So yeah, those are all key for me when it comes to taking care of myself and my stress.
Do you follow any kind of anti-psoriasis diet?
I don't. I love a balanced diet. I'm not a big gluten person, so I try to keep away from, just because I don't feel like it makes me feel that great. But yeah, I don't really follow a specific diet. I've tried things in the past, and I do like food. I have to say, I like food. I enjoy food, so I try to just keep it as balanced as possible.
Great. Is there any kind of closing thought that you want to offer to the psoriasis community?
Yeah, and there's, like I said, over 8 million of us in the United States, and I want everyone to know that they are not alone in this. And hopefully, by me sharing my own journey, it has and will inspire people to share theirs. So yeah, please check out psoandtheknow.com and check out the podcast, and hopefully that will set you on a path, if you're not already, of feeling connected to others who share the same journey.